I brought in my buddy, Bill Doris, former TV news dude, as I am a former TV news gal, dudette, to talk about this because, Bill, increasingly, I feel like I'm living in that Queen song, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Is this the real life?
Is this real life?
Is this just fantasy?
I don't even know what I'm watching anymore when I see mainstream media talking about COVID. And specifically, what we're talking about today is that Brian Stelter, of course, everyone knows, a good friend of mine. No, just kidding. But he did reply to my email for a debate. He did reply to an email about wanting him to debate what he was calling information pollution, I believe. So we'll talk about the censorship calls, speech suppression calls in a second, but we're going to focus on this because the latest Brian has been talking about on his show is that the Fox News anchors are not doing enough to post that they're getting vaccinated for COVID. They're not posting vaccine selfies. They're not following some of the other major networks by having their anchors get vaccinated live on television, and that this is according to Brian, this is really problematic. So let's just take a quick look at this clip.
I think it's really important to see all these TV anchors, personalities showing themselves getting the shot. We've seen a lot of vaccine selfies from lots of folks at lots of different networks. It's been really inspiring to see. The Today Show even brought the co-hosts outside for a live group vaccination this week. I say all of that to make the following point. Where are Tucker and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham? Where is Ainsley Earhardt and Steve Doocy and Brian Kilmeade? Where are the biggest stars on Fox getting vaccinated? I get it's a personal choice. I get that's between, the hosts and their healthcare provider. But everybody else is doing it, right, Matt? I mean, all across television, all these anchors are rolling up their sleeves. Why do you think we haven't seen the biggest stars on Fox News get vaccinated or show us their vaccine selfies?
Steve Doocy should get vaccinated live on Fox and Friends. It would save lives. It would save the lives of his viewers. I don't understand why they won't do that.
By the way, it should have happened in February. It's April. Where are they?
Just what your thoughts before I share mine.
Well, Allison, I have to say this is where we're at. It's the Childish Gambino song. This is America. It really just seems like now there's no politics to argue about. Of course, Fox News is going to blame Biden for stuff, and of course, all the others, MSNBC, CNN, they're going to blame Republicans for stuff. That's going to happen. That's been happening. But the ratings have tanked. And now all they have left, it seems to me, is let's fight each other since we can't fight the politicians to get the ratings that we used to get. And Allison, I got to say, I don't know what is more astonishing than me. The fact that they think this is what's going to get them back on track. They think this is real news, or us in American society believe this is what journalism is. And it's frightening and sickening all at the same time.
Agree. And I would just like to say, to begin with, okay, neither you nor I are here trying to say you should or should not get the COVID vaccine. All right. That is everybody's personal choice. And as former journalists, I would think it would be nuts to go on television and tell somebody, shame them really publicly for what their medical choices are. Okay. But even if we were to just go down the path of, all right, well, let's just ask some questions like, is it crazy to question the COVID vaccine? This is not on conspiracy news sites. Okay. This first one I'm showing is the University of Minnesota. Amid probes, more nations suspend AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. This is basically saying the same thing. This is from Forbes. Growing number of nations suspend AstraZeneca COVID vaccine amid blood clot concerns. This one is Georgia becomes third state to shut down Johnson & Johnson vaccine site after adverse reactions.
I mean, when it comes to actually getting the vaccine, if you want to get vaccinated, go for it. If you don't, you have a choice. That's a great thing about this country. But you should not be shamed because you didn't take a or post a picture of a medical procedure. To me, and I don't want to say that I have a background in healthcare, that's not a HIPAA violation, but you're starting to get on the borderline.
What kind of precedent does that set? Because I think about Stelter and some of the other journalists who have been calling for more speech suppression and getting people deplatformed, and this whole idea of going after other journalists, or misinformation and asking for big tech to come in and babysit us all. And my question there is the same as it was here. Like, where does this lead? Is anyone thinking a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road about where these calls for speech suppression eventually get us and why this is a bad idea, like what the problems could be down the road? And in this case, it's the same way. It's like, does anyone even think when they're talking about, like, when you're someone who's calling for people to publicly share their medical information or else, you're not doing your diligence as a journalist or a host? I'm not really quite sure how Stelter sees these people, but either way, like, what precedent that sets for people that now you're shaming folks if they're not going public with how they're handling their body and healthcare. To me, it sets a dangerous precedent. And it just seems like another example of people in our old industry, like, not thinking past their nose.
I guess I'm more of a jaded approach to where this is a Hail Mary by CNN to boost ratings in any possible way that they can. They're throwing everything at the wall to hope it sticks. And I really think that's all it was. But now it's more developed into how you're thinking. And, it's none of your business what I do or what I post to my social media, especially when it comes to healthcare. And if you're shaming me for it, then we've got a problem, and somebody needs to look into this. Somebody needs to investigate this a little bit closer.
There does seem to be this tone among people that are covering this, and let's just talk about the vaccine specifically, that that are just kind of acting like, if you have any questions whatsoever, that you're not being a team player, and worse, you're a conspiracy theorist. When, I just showed you articles that are, these are valid reasons for people to say, what, I just want to know more. Maybe I'm not ready. I just want to know more. What's wrong with that? Like, when did that become anti-American, I guess? It's weird to me.
It became anti-American when it didn't start fitting the narrative of the powers that be. And that's take that for what you will. Just talking about this with you, I'm scared to death that this video, when you post it, it may be up for 15 minutes and it's going to get removed. And we're not even talking about anything what I would consider controversial. We're talking about controversial statements made by another personality. We'll say that. So that I'm even worried about that. But the fact that more people are not questioning this and it's just being pushed out, and if you don't get it, you're a pariah, it says a lot. And it says even more that what passes as journalism in America is getting away with pushing that narrative.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, if you are an average American and you're having these conversations and you want to be condescending towards somebody who doesn't choose the way you choose, fine. But if you're a journalist, I have a real problem with that. I just have a real problem with that. It's just this combination of lack of knowledge and arrogance about the ignorance that they have. Maybe these journalists, I don't know, they're just not seeking the information as much as they should be. They're just reading each other and they're all saying exactly the same thing. You can find this stuff. Obviously, I showed you Forbes, I showed you CBS. So, like, there is stuff out there. I guess at the end of the day, that's why I just don't believe that they're just ignorant because poor babies don't have access to information. It's there. I've seen it. You've seen it. It's not that hard, but at the end of the day, it is harder to find that information than some of the mainstream narratives that are allowed out there, because the tech companies are actively suppressing anybody who's questioning it, even if you're a medical doctor. And that's the funny thing. I had the CEO of Library on the other day talking about the SEC lawsuit, and he's like, the standard to talk about medicine on YouTube is for some reason higher than to practice medicine, because people are able to keep their practices and their licenses and treat patients, but they get booted off YouTube. It's the weirdest thing ever. And so I guess this is just to say that ultimately, if you haven't seen it, or you're just watching mainstream news and you haven't seen the other sides of some issues, whether it's this or something else, it's not because it doesn't exist. It's probably because you're not being allowed to hear it or see it. And the people you're watching are not talking about it. And I say this a lot on my channel. Like, if you're looking at someone like, how could they possibly think that? How could they possibly think that? Well, maybe it's because there's information out there that you just haven't seen because your news of choice is not talking about it. And it might be an opportunity for you to expand your horizons. And if you're a journalist who's saying, I just don't understand these people, then go find out. Don't just say, I don't understand these people, they're crazy, and shame each other on television or whatever else your outlet is. Go figure out why people are thinking and acting the way that they are. I'm so tired of hearing journalists say, I just don't get it. What is wrong with these people? Like, I thought that our job was to go figure out what was going on, not to just say, I don't get it, so it must be nuts. I just don't, that to me is not journalism.
Well, Allison, that's why we're not in journalism
Yeah,
anymore,
I guess
because
so.
we wanted truth and we wanted answers, and we didn't want to control a narrative. We just wanted to tell the story, and wherever the truth took us, that's where it took us. Nowadays, it's not about that anymore, and that's damn scary.